What's up guys, for the first time on this channel I'm going to do a borderline rant video that doesn't focus on English. In good personal news, I have now fulfilled all the requirements for an Arabic certificate at Pitt. In celebration of that, and so that it's still fresh in my head, spoiler alert, I'm gonna make an Arabic language overview. Yeah, I don't normally give teasers, but that's what my next video will be. But before then, I need to make this video about how hard Arabic is, or for reasons that you'll see very shortly, much of the material in the Arabic language overview won't make any sense. You saw the title, and don't get me wrong, I definitely know that there's no such thing as an easy language. However, I've found that Arabic has some sociolinguistic factors that make it uniquely difficult to foreigners. That's the bulk of what I'm about to say, so yallah. To just introduce the concept, yes, Arabic is a bit grammatically challenging. I'm never gonna deny that. However, it's not the most grammatically challenging language I've studied. That title would definitely go to Polish, with Russian as a close second and Icelandic its third. No, the reason that Arabic is uniquely difficult to learn is that it's actually a language family. What is generally called Arabic is actually several closely related languages on a dialect continuum. However, all Arab countries use the same standard variety known as Modern Standard Arabic, MSA, or Al-Fusha. There are issues with this that we'll go into more detail about later, but what you need to know now is that MSA is based mostly off of Classical Arabic, the variety that the Quran is written in, with some alterations to make it more suitable for modern times. The thing about MSA, though, is that it's nobody's native language. Everyone who can speak it learns it in school. The dialects are the people's native languages. How the system works in Arab countries is that the people mostly speak their native dialect, like at home, out on the town and all that, but then use MSA in formal settings like when giving speeches and, at least in theory, in any kind of writing. And you're really not supposed to mix them, but the norm for teaching second language learners is to primarily focus on MSA. This system has several implications which you're about to learn, and it isn't easy to overcome. Before I started teaching Arabic to myself back in 2016, I had seen the Lang Focus video on pretty much this exact subject, and Paul started the video with the exact same point that I just did. But back then, I watched his video and thought to myself, well, I know my way around in languages, I'm sure it'll be fine. I've never been more wrong about anything in my entire life, so please accept my warnings. The first big implication of the system has to do with what I just said about second language learning. A lot of schools will prioritize teaching MSA over a specific dialect. Thankfully, this is becoming less of an issue these days, and my own college has Egyptian and Levantine options. But this has led to a number of horror stories where a foreigner goes to an Arab country and tries to get around in MSA and everyone laughs at them because it sounds hilarious to hear this centuries-old formal variety of Arabic when you're like at a restaurant. And this isn't just like formal speech in English where you enunciate and use bigger words. No, this is like if I walked into Starbucks and said, "Good morning, I hope that we're having a nice day and I will a tall coffee with crème après." I hope y'all enjoyed my attempt at late middle English, but yeah, that's how speaking MSA in a casual setting would appear. It would seem very antiquated and everyone would laugh at you. And I have heard horror stories from my professors about students of Arabic doing study abroad and having terrible experiences because people found it hilarious that they were speaking the Arabic equivalent of Middle English. Or like Middle English if we were still taught to speak it in the news. The fact that MSA is something Arabic speakers only learn in school is also a problem for learners due to who we generally have to talk to. Let's face it, most of us aren't going to the Arab world to speak Arabic. So if you're not in the Arab world, the vast majority of the native Arabic speakers that you'll know are immigrants, and they most likely immigrated as kids, especially if you know them from high school, like is the case with most of the Arabs I know. And since nobody speaks MSA as a native language, Arabs who either immigrated at a young age or were born outside of the Arab world will only speak what their parents spoke to them, which is the dialect of their country of origin. If they immigrated in like their tween or teen years, they probably know a bit of MSA, but for the most part, Arabs who grew up in the diaspora will speak their mother dialect as a native or heritage language and no MSA. So when I was originally learning Arabic on my own at age 15, I was being essentially forced into learning MSA because that's what all the apps and such were giving me, and I still couldn't speak Arabic with my high school classmates because they had gotten most or all of their education in the United States. This definitely made learning Arabic a bit harder. But did you ever wonder why MSA is even taught like that? It's because MSA is seen by many as the correct form of Arabic and therefore is somehow superior to the dialects. In fact, the aforementioned Arabic term for this in classical Arabic is Al-Fusha, which means something along the lines of the eloquent language. You want to see my rebuttal of that whole idea? I have a video about prescriptivism already made. It's about English, but it's the same basic idea. This idea of classical Arabic, and by extension MSA, being correct has to do with religion. In Islam, they hold on very tightly to the belief that because the Quran was given to the Prophet Muhammad in classical Arabic, it's the language of Allah and therefore is the only pure language. Along those lines, translations of the Quran are not considered holy. A problem that me and some friends who also study Arabic run into is that we would tell an Arab how we're learning a dialect of Arabic and they'd say, but you should learn Fusha, it's the more beautiful and more correct form, and we'd be like, the thing is I actually want to communicate with you. It can get frustrating, but also the level of adherence to considering only classical and MSA correct gets a bit ridiculous at times. As mentioned earlier, technically you're only supposed to write MSA, at least that's what everyone says, but the way all of the literature is worded reads something like, MSA is used for writing, the dialects are absolutely never written. Except for this, and this. And also this. And this. And I'm just sitting there reading this thinking, so what you're saying is the dialects are written sometimes? As it turns out, yes, actually a lot of the time. Before we get to the next sections, it's necessary for me to introduce the Arabic dialects. As mentioned, the dialects exist on a continuum, but they're generally divided into these dialects, which includes some countries in the Arab League without an Arabic-speaking majority, but they can also be more simplistically divided into these dialects. Most countries, namely these ones, are generally said to have their own dialects, although some of them spill into their neighbors' territory. In addition, there are two main dialects that span multiple countries, those being Levantine Arabic in the Levant, spoken in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and the Palestinian territories, and Gulf Arabic in the Gulf, spoken by the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and eastern Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia actually has three dialects within its borders, those being Hijazi in the west, Najdi in the center, and as mentioned, Gulf Arabic in the east. Egyptian Arabic is the most spoken variety at 83 million native speakers and is also well recognized due to Egypt being the Hollywood of the Arab world. Even though people write dialects in text and whatnot, the dialects aren't standardized, so there's still some MSA influence on the spellings, i.e. letters affected by sound shifts revert to MSA. It's at this point I should mention that the dialect I studied was Levantine, because now I'll tell you all about one of the ways that Levantine Arabic specifically messed me up. This was actually pretty recent. I was doing a writing assignment and I decided to write the phrase Bisma'ku sa'ilin, which I intended to mean I hear y'all asking. Here's a breakdown of the morphemes, specifically focus on the ku at the end because my instructor had no idea what I was trying to say. I actually had to tell her it in English at an editing session before she realized what I was trying to say. It was a good laugh though. I eventually realized that I made the mistake due to getting that object pronoun suffix confused with a verb conjugation. You see, in MSA, to say y'all heard is sama'tum with at the end. In Levantine Arabic, that same phrase is sama'tu, without the final Likewise, in MSA, I hear y'all is esma'kum. So I assumed wrongly that the Levantine translation of that phrase would be bisma'ku. The be is a Levantine present tense marker that doesn't exist in MSA. I had essentially drawn an analogy that didn't exist due to missing a piece of the puzzle due to unstandardized varieties, of course. I changed that word in my paper to bisma'kum and moved on. Although apparently at least my teacher said that the ku suffix is used in Iraq, so at least I had that going for me. But the big idea is that you can never be 100% sure if you're using the right words in Arabic. The lines between a dialect and the standard, or between two or more dialects, can get very fuzzy at times, and this is a complicating factor for Arabic, especially in how insecure it makes you. In terms of the languages themselves, though, MSA is also more difficult here. This is because MSA has retained some grammatical features that no longer exist in practically any of the modern dialects. In particular, Classical Arabic had cases. Granted, these are only kept around in extremely formal situations, but nonetheless they existed and affect how the language can be read today, even though none of the modern dialects have them. But the difficulty with cases doesn't end there. To show the problem, here's the case chart for the Arabic word kitab, meaning book. Oh wait, they all look the same. That's because I didn't add the harakat, or the optional vowel appendages. Now I can see that the vowels at the end change, but of course this isn't necessary for the average Arabic speaker at all, as the cases aren't even used most of the time in MSA. Their use is limited to basically just poetry and presidential speeches. It's actually an interesting tidbit that my Arabic teachers always love to bring up, that in Arab countries, there are grammarians whose job it is to mark politicians' speeches with the harakat so that their formal language sounds correct. Which really shows how unnecessary they are to the average person if even heads of state can't reliably use cases properly. Finally, I have something more related to me personally, but still relevant for Arabic. A lot of people ask me if the fact that I already speak Hebrew really well makes Arabic easier for me. And to that I answer yes, but not nearly as much as you'd think. The issue here is that since we're talking about languages on the same branch of a family, people think that Hebrew and Arabic have the same amount of similarity to each other as, say, Spanish and Italian. But this is far from true due to the fact that the historic splits between the pairs of languages did not happen at the same time. Proto-Afroasiatic is actually the oldest reconstructed proto-language linguists have proven, fun fact. So whereas Spanish and Italian split apart from one another a little under 2,000 years ago, give or take, Arabic split from the Northwest Semitic languages a bit over 4,500 years ago. This means that Arabic and Hebrew have had over twice the amount of chronological separation from each other as Spanish and Italian have had. This means they've had over twice the amount of time for their sound systems to evolve, for their grammatical systems to evolve, and of course for their vocabularies to evolve. To demonstrate this, lexical similarity is a measure used to show what percentage of two languages' words are cognates. Spanish and Italian have a lexical similarity of 82%. Hebrew and Arabic have a lexical similarity of 31%. And I actually had to calculate that number myself because there's no reliable source for it on the internet. That's a little under 1/3 of Arabic words that Hebrew has, meaning that when I learned Arabic, I had to learn the rest of the words for the first time. In addition, Hebrew and Arabic have diverged to the point where false friends are more common than words that look and mean the same. For instance, something that happened to me multiple times in Arabic class was that the teacher would be like, "What does lahm mean?" And I would enthusiastically shout out, "bread." And then my classmates would look at me like I'm stupid because no it doesn't. Lechem in Hebrew means bread, lahm means meat. I still tried using Hebrew to my advantage in Arabic class though. Normally if I didn't know an Arabic word that I needed to use, I would try to use my historical linguistic knowledge to reconstruct the Hebrew word for the thing as though it had evolved into Arabic and hope for the best. This only worked twice, maybe 3 times in my entire college career. Now for the nerds here. The first time was when I forgot the word for spicy, but I knew that the Hebrew word kharif, the khet in Hebrew corresponds to either the ha or kha in Arabic, but I knew that kharif was the word for autumn, so by process of elimination, I arrived at and said kharif. And my teacher understood, so evidently that's at least an acceptable Arabic word for spicy. The other time I needed to say cedar, so I basically just said the Hebrew word erez like it was Arabic, ars, and evidently that is the Arabic word for cedar. This isn't a reliable system though. There were many more times where I tried doing this and ended up saying or writing words that were either gibberish or meant something different from what I wanted to say, which is a testament to the low amount of lexical similarity between the two languages. To close out, I'll recap the points I've made to demonstrate why Arabic is uniquely hard. Of course, it mostly just revolves around the fact that Arabic is not a single language, even though many of its speakers pretend it is. The variety generally taught to foreigners is a bit archaic and nobody today speaks it natively, so you won't be able to use it to converse with your grade school classmates who immigrated from the Arab world. And there is, at least in theory, a disconnect between the general written language and spoken language. MSA is also just generally harder than any of the dialects, even if it's better documented. All of this makes lines between dialects a bit fuzzy, so it's hard to tell when you're using the correct word, or even grammar. If you're learning Arabic, I salute you and I feel for you. If you want to learn Arabic, well, good luck. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next with the Arabic language overview.